Hey everybody, this is Scott Mann, CEO and founder of the Stability Institute, where we broker knowledge and connect stability professionals on complex stability problems all over the world. And I want to thank you for dialing in to another one of our stability episodes that's focused on Afghanistan and stability tradecraft. And I am extremely thrilled today to have my buddy Joanne Herring with us. Joanne, I am sure needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway, and we're going to talk about her backstory and stuff, but many of you would immediately recognize her name, obviously from the movie Charlie Wilson's War, where she was portrayed as the tough, tenacious heroine there that brought down the Soviet Empire and helped the Afghan people. And I can tell you, in the time that I've spent with Joanne, Julia Roberts didn't come close to the real lady, and she's just a dynamic personality and has been gracious enough to host us down here in Houston and talk to us about Afghanistan and the challenges that we have there. So first of all, Joanne, thank you for sitting in with us today. I really appreciate it.
I'm such an admirer of yours and your organization. It's humbling.
Well, thanks. And before we get into it, I mean, in all seriousness, I do want to just tell you personally and from all of the stability practitioners that are out there that have served in Afghanistan, that we do appreciate what you did and what a handful of folks did in Afghanistan at a time when not a lot of people were paying attention. And it did make a difference, and we appreciate it. And it is very much appreciated as we continue to work in that rough place.
Scott, we cut every corner. We ran around every person we possibly could. We did the craziest things that anybody ever did. But it just shows that if you're willing to work long enough and hard enough, and you really care, and you just don't let people knock you down too often,
right?
That it can work.
Yeah, exactly.
And the little guy can make it work. I was just a little guy,
right.
But because we kept at it, and we really cared, and we had something real.
Right.
You know, it wasn't just some dream. Well, it sort of was a dream, but we thought it would work, and it did.
Yeah, and so that really, for our viewers, that's really what the purpose of today's segment with Miss Joanne is, to talk about the challenges of Afghanistan, both then and today, and to gain some insights and perspective from you on how you dealt with it and how you got folks to focus on it, when really, you know, a lot of people in our government were not focused. So what I'd like to do, if we could, Joanne, is to start with just quickly give us your version of how you were drawn into the Afghan problem set in the beginning. What led you to it, and your memories of that initial experience with Afghanistan.
Well, I had become the Consul General of Pakistan, and I had served under Bhutto and under Zia, and the difference was incredible. Bhutto was not a good president, and Zia was wonderful. He had a military regime, and people don't understand that, but Scott, it's the only way in some of these countries. A good guy with a strong government can make a difference, and you have to pull everybody together. They have to work together. So I believed in this man, and I was in Pakistan, and we were talking, and he said 2 million refugees have moved into Pakistan, and I don't have the money. And he said, the Russians have invaded. Your government doesn't recognize that it is an invasion. They're calling it a tribal war. They are disgorging tanks every 48 minutes from cargo ships. It is a Russian invasion, and I am next. And I said, well, you've got a great army. He said, yeah, we've got a great army, but we don't have anything to fight with. And he said, they'll take me in 5 days. And Carter had offered him something like $5 million. And I said, why didn't you take it? It's money. He said, because it would give them the excuse to invade me. They would say I was an American puppet and that I was, you know, and that's all they needed, just some excuse. He said, as long as I don't retaliate, I can survive for a while. But he said, if I took the money, which isn't enough to save me, So that's not going to buy the guns I need or the military equipment. So I've just got to sit here and pray. And so I said, well, if America knew what was happening, I think we would help you. And he said, why doesn't America know? And I said, okay, let's make a movie. I couldn't think of anything I had to give but a television show. And so I said, I don't know how to do much, but I know how to do a television show. So he said, well, okay. I said, he said, where are we going to get the people? I said, you've got a television station. Give me your people. And I got my son, who had the greatest camera in the world and was a marvelous photographer. He was only 18. And when I think about taking my child into Afghanistan in December, right after the Russians had invaded, there was nobody in there but the Russians and us and the Mujahideen. So, and of course Mujahideen hadn't really formed at that time, but they were forming. So we went into Afghanistan, made a film. It was the most terrifying thing I ever did in my life, and the most wonderful, because I just thought, oh, this is so glorious. These people, they came and they said, don't give us food, don't give us money, don't give us anything, or medicine, or anything. Give us guns so we can live without food, we can live without medicine, we can live without any of those things, but we can't live without freedom. And I thought, those guys sound like Texans. So I said, okay, we really have to help them. So we made this movie. It was shown to about 500,000 people around the world. And it was shown to Charlie Wilson. And I went to Washington. I went to Caspar Weinberger, who was Secretary of Defense. I went to Bill Casey, who was head of the CIA. And they looked at me and laughed, and they said, Joanne, we can't get $3 million for Nicaragua in our own hemisphere. The Russians are in our own hemisphere, and we can't get any money to stop them. You have got to get a Democrat. Well, the only Democrat I knew was Charlie. I mean, I knew some, but I was mostly with the Republicans. Charlie was not interested in anything but dating Miss Universe, and everybody was very surprised he was dating me. So Charlie, not like the movie at all, he saw our film. Charlie is a very fine man and very smart. People forget that he was an Annapolis graduate, and he's quite capable of doing lots of things, but he had a county and an area in Texas didn't want very much, as he's quick to tell you. So he didn't give them very much, but gave them their guns and their dogs, and they were happy. But when he took this, he really did it with his heart. And he gave it everything he had, and he was on some very significant committee. But still, it was, people said, yes, oh, that's very sad. But I began to look at the map, and I thought, why in the world do they want Afghanistan? Why do they want Pakistan? There's nothing in any of these countries. And then I saw the Straits of Hormuz, and 80% of the world's oil passed through there every day. And I realized that this was the economy of the United States. So when I went to Congress, then I began to make the rounds in Congress and say, listen, this isn't our air conditioners and our cars. This is our economy. This is our factories. This is our defense. How are we going to run our ships? How are we going to defend ourselves? And suddenly the glazed look that people always got in their eyes when I talked about Afghanistan disappeared. And they began to think about it and realize that was true. So with Charlie on those committees, and we all began to talk around, we got the thing going. And what people don't remember, Scott, which is so tragic, is that the Saudi Arabian government, the royal family, matched us dollar for dollar in Desert Storm and in Afghanistan. And without them, we would never have been able to do anything in Afghanistan, because what we had to do is we couldn't have any equipment that was labeled made in USA. So we had to buy the equipment in Israel, ship it to Egypt where we picked up some more material, then somebody had to pay for it, which was the Saudi Arabians, but the Egyptians, you see, let us do it. And then we shipped it to Pakistan, which had then to okay the equipment passing through Pakistan into Afghanistan, because as you know, Afghanistan's landlocked. Oh, so the Israelis, there's a famous scene in the movie where the Israelis, I was actually there, not Goose, but the Israeli says, "You want me to sell arms to somebody with whom I don't even have diplomatic relations?" They didn't. If you went from Egypt to Israel, you went illegally, because they had no relations, and you couldn't go from one country to the other. And you couldn't do that in Saudi Arabia either. But the Saudis said, "You want us to give money to our bitterest enemies?" And we said, "Yes, because you are going to be one of those dominoes." Right. So they said, okay, they did it, and the arms began to go into Afghanistan secretly because of Zia in Pakistan.
Right. And obviously the results speak for themselves in terms of the impact that it had on the Soviets and ultimately their departure from Afghanistan. And you and I have talked about the tragedy that we really did not stay there and kind of finish a lot of the stability that followed that we had an opportunity to do, and that came back around in the end, I think, unfortunately. But one of the things that strikes me about what you did, Joanne, that you continue to do, is you were building networks, you were forming relationships, you were getting people to focus on something that they really didn't want to focus on way before it was cool. Today, everybody's doing that on social media and connecting and building networks and collaborating, but you were able to do that at a time when it was absolutely critical. And I think we're there again. As I look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan and this inclination of our government and our people in many ways to just focus inwardly, it seems like we don't have much interest in Afghanistan anymore. And I'm wondering, would you mind just sharing some of your thoughts on how did you build these networks? How did you get folks to pay attention and kind of how did you step through that? It's really fascinating.
Humor. I would try to do something amusing that would interest the senator or the congressman or the minister or whatever it is. I gave parties. I tried to make them have a good time. They would come. That's the main thing. You could get through to them. And I made a lot of mistakes, and they were amused by those. And we just kept doing it.
Right.
And we made friends. That was really important.
Relationships.
Yeah, relationships and bonding, and so that at least we had their ear. That's the thing today. You can't get from one organization to another, and organizations don't work together. Right. Everybody was working together at this time. Once they understood what the threat was, the Democrats and the Republicans worked together. Right. It was really exciting. I got the Republicans, Charlie got the Democrats, I got the Arabs, and he got the Israelis. It was wonderful. See, Charlie had never even been in an Arabic country, right, and I'd never been to Israel. And so, but we put all these people together, and they saw that together they could, and we had to do all this undercover because it was, maybe it was even against the law. We weren't really even thinking about that. We really threw everything we had to the winds, and we said, okay, so we go to jail. Send me a file in a cake.
Yeah, and the book that you've put out there, Diplomacy in Diamonds, I mean, and for our viewers, our members, you really open up the story on that, on how you went about that, the processes that you did, and you were always regardless of whether it was a party in Houston or whether it was a meeting with an ambassador in a foreign country, you always knew where you were going with that discussion, with that relationship, and you were always one step ahead.
You made me think of something. I would always give them something they wanted.
Right.
Everybody wants something. Now, I don't mean big things a lot of times. Maybe a kid into college.
Sure.
Their wife wants to meet somebody, a movie star.
Right.
Or just fun things, that you could do for somebody. That's what I would do. I would first do something for them.
Right.
And then they'd kind of want to do something for me. And so if it was a vote here or there, even if they didn't really know a whole lot about it, they would do it. But as you pointed out, you made me think about that. I hadn't even realized it, but that's always a way. Right. I always try to give them something first, find out what they want. And everybody wants something, even tickets to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Who knows,
Yeah. And that's part of the trade craft. That's part of building networks, and something I hope our members will latch on to there. And the other thing that I just want to circle back to that I think you said is so important right now. I mean, it's real easy, I think, for those of us who have worked in Afghanistan and some of these other rough places to get frustrated when we look and see how the withdrawal is going, the transition, and regardless of where you come down on policy, I think it's tough to watch what's going on in Afghanistan right now. But you said something that struck me, and I think we all need to take to heart, which is, the little guy can do a lot, even in the most dire circumstances. And I don't mean that as little boy whistling in the dark. I mean really can accomplish big things.
They can. That's the thing. Just because you're a little guy, but if you really care, you'll find lots of people that will care. Right. And they'll join you.
Right.
And then it's kind of the way the Tea Party started.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about the Tea Party, but listen, they were just a lot of little guys.
Right.
And they became a national force.
And you're doing something. You're back. You're working in Afghanistan again. You've come back into the fray, and you've put together a charitable organization. That is really doing what you just said, is acknowledging that there are a lot of smaller organizations out there doing great work, many of them with very unique skills and talents, and that there's really more strength in doing that as a force of folks working together. And it's called the Marshall Plan Charities. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
right, but can I tell you first just why I went back and why I formed the Marshall Plan Charities?
Please.
Because this, I think, may resonate. I didn't want to go back to Afghanistan. After the movie, everybody contacted me because they thought maybe I'd help, and I couldn't bear the thought of seeing children maimed and so forth, so I just didn't want to talk to them. But Caroline Firestone of the Firestone Tires came to me and she said, "I'm working in Afghanistan." I said, "You are?" And she said, "Yes, I am, and I need you to help me." And I said, "Well, I can't. And then she said, "Well, let me tell you a story." She said, "I was in the room with this man who came in weeping, and his son was with him, and he was 15, and it was his oldest son. And he said to me, this was Caroline, 'I know I will never see my son again, and I am devastated.'" He used another word, of course, to do this, but if I don't sell him to this school, I will not be able to feed my family, and we'll die this winter. We don't have any money. We had bad crops. We can't survive. But I know that he'll have an education. He'll have plenty to eat, so he'll be all right. When he left, she recognized the other man who was purchasing the boy as a dealer in human organs. And she said, "What are you going to do with that boy?" He said, "I'm going to sell him for his eyes." And that's when I said, no father should ever have to make that decision. Because he had had 16 in his family. He was the only wage earner because of the culture out there. The women couldn't work outside the home. And in order for his family to survive, he had to sell this boy. But of course, he had no idea what was going to happen to him. But that is the story of what survival is in Afghanistan today, right. And people don't understand it.
Right.
And so I had to go back.
Right. And there's also, you've talked in your book about also the just protecting, you know, the U.S. homeland against terrorism and also getting our guys back home. Talk a little bit about
Oh, that, you see, I feel that we are not the world's policemen. And the blood of our children is too precious. We should not be in foreign countries. And if we help them soon enough, give them the arms to fight, give them special forces heroes like you and like the group that are here. I love you. I love the SEALs. I'm so grateful for the Green Berets and men like you who risk your life daily for us. And it is important because what happens over there is going to directly affect human trafficking and so many of the things that we feel are very important in this country, because the Boston Massacre, 9/11, all those things are the result of an Afghanistan out of control, with foreign people there being trained, foreign terrorists. And these people, as you know, Scott, very well, these people are not religious. They don't care a thing about religion. They are after power and money, just like Hitler and Stalin, just like every overpowering type of government throughout history has been interested in power and money, and that's what they want. But they use Afghanistan as a training ground. And as long as we allow Afghanistan to go under and the people not to be able to survive, and yet they're the greatest freedom fighters in the world. If freedom can make it anywhere, if any people can get rid of a force like the Taliban, but the Taliban's just one of many.
One of many, yeah.
Many, there's so many that you can't even remember the names, but they are all concentrated on one thing, and that is taking over the country and taking over us. They want us, and they want to get us economically, which can happen, and they want to get us because we're soft and afraid.